Hey guys, Aaron Dorr here with the Missouri Firearms Coalition. For the last couple of months, all we've heard about here at our office from our members is where are we on IP reform? Guys, this video will be the video on where things are today on the initiative petition process as of February 10, 2024. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be a long video. I'm going to first explain for those who might not know what initiative petition actually means, how the process currently works, the problems that we are experiencing here in Missouri because of our current IP laws. Then I'm going to break down the process and how we're trying to fix that here in Jeff City, then give you guys the cast of characters who are blocking IP reform right now in Jeff City and give you guys the information you need to contact them and make your voice heard. So it's going to take some time, but this is the gun issue in Missouri in 2024. Frankly, nothing else matters right now. If we don't deal with IP reform, all of our current gun laws will eventually be repealed here in Missouri, let alone passing new pro-gun laws right now in Jefferson City. So it's going to take some time. Hope you guys have the time. And without further ado, here's what's going on right now here in Jeff City. So IP reform, it stands for Initiative Petition Reform. Right now in Missouri, we are one of about, I think, 24, 25 states where the people can add issues to the ballot to be voted on to add that issue into the Missouri Constitution. So in other words, if an organization wants to have people go around Missouri and gather petitions, signatures, they can place an issue on the November ballot to be voted on. Now, there's a certain threshold on how many names have to be added to the petition, where they have to be gathered from. You have to disclose if those people are paid or not paid. There's a whole process there. But the end of that is that an issue can be placed on the ballot to be voted on by the people having never gone through the legislature first. It's called an initiative petition. And again, it bypasses the legislature and goes right to the people in Missouri. Now, for a long time, conservatives have used the IP process to advance some good things. And that might have been smart back in the day. The problem now is that, and even those conservative people from back in the day should have looked forward and read the tea leaves and read our demographics and seen what our government schools are cranking out every 12 months. The problem now is that it's much easier for people who hate freedom to get their items on the ballot and get their items approved by the people and bypass the legislature. This is a constitutional republic that we live in, and so is our state. And so here at the Missouri Firearms Coalition, we do not support a direct petition process. That's why we have a General Assembly. That's why we have a House and a Senate and a governor. Their job is to cast law. Their job is to make law. Our job as the people is to elect them. And if we don't like them, we can kick them out. That's how the process is supposed to work. When these issues go directly to the people, the direct democracy approach, it almost always only benefits the left and anybody who hates freedom. So long term, this is a very bad deal. Missouri currently, because of our very low threshold to get an issue on the ballot, has the fifth longest constitution in the country. The fifth longest in the country. In fact, you'll love this, and maybe you'll hate this. The United States Constitution, the charter for our country, has approximately 7,600 words, 7,600 words. You want to guess what we have here in Missouri? Because of this repetitive IP process and adding things to our ballot again and again and again, we have 65,500 words. It's almost, the U.S. Constitution is almost one-tenth the size of the Missouri Constitution. And the problem with that, again, is that the left gets their things added to the Constitution. The other problem then is we are effectively legislating via the Constitution. We are bypassing the General Assembly, and we are having the people in mass legislate via the Constitution. That's not how it was supposed to work. And so the problem right now getting back to where we are now here today, is the left currently today is trying to advance a whole host of abortion initiatives on the ballot in 2024. Now, before you even say anything about why are we discussing abortion, well, first of all, we're 100% pro-life in every regard. We're pro-life in a sense of unborn babies and defending ourselves with firearms against criminals, so we don't shy away from that. But more to the point, if the left can take this process and put their abortion laws into the Constitution, what do you think is going to happen 2 years from now when it comes time for them to look at the ballot in the context of our Second Amendment rights? Right now, today, again, this is February of 2024, there are no gun control initiative petitions on the ballot. They were on the ballot, and they did polling here in Missouri, and they decided that the pro-gun vote was so intense, thanks to the Missouri Firearms Coalition and you guys, that putting that in the ballot would sabotage their other leftist agenda items. It has been removed for now, but it could be added back to the ballot yet this year, or again, as we approach the elections in 2026, it could be in the ballot then, or 2028, or every 2 years from now on for the rest of our lives. The left can put language onto the ballot for a vote of we the people, and they could repeal constitutional carry. They could repeal stand your ground law. They could repeal SAPA law. They could mandate universal background checks. They could ban AR-15s. The list is endless. All the crap they're trying to do right now here in Jeff City, yeah, they can skip all of that and go right to the ballot and do it that way. That is why we should all care right now about IP reform, because if we do not deal with this, they will strip away our gun rights. Maybe not in 2024, but eventually it will certainly happen. And again, don't take my word for it. Just look at what our schools crank out every 12 months. And it's not just St. Louis or Kansas City or Columbia or Springfield. Almost every single one of our government schools these days are teaching our children to despise this country's origins, to despise our founding fathers, that the Second Amendment is evil, and they should all vote to apologize for their privilege. And it's not just our big cities. So long term, we have a real demographics problem. And so the whole fight this year about Second Amendment comes down to IP reform. Currently in Missouri, when an issue finally gets to the ballot, if it gets 50% of the votes cast plus one vote, it is added to our Constitution. The fight underway right now, then, is to elevate that threshold. There are different ways to do this. You might remember late last year in Ohio, they tried to elevate that number from 50% plus one to 60% plus one. That measure failed spectacularly. That has failed also other states not too far from us. I believe that was tried in South Dakota in the past. It failed there. Whenever we see that number go to 60% plus one, it fails. And so that is not the way to proceed. There are other versions that would say 50% plus one of all votes cast, but it has to be not just statewide, but in each of our congressional districts. So each of our congressional seats could weigh in. Other versions, and the best version by far right now, would be 50% plus one in each state House district across the state. What does that mean? It means that monopoly of power that St. Louis and Kansas City currently enjoy, that would be done away with, because they would have to carry 50% plus one vote in every state House seat across the entire state. So rural Missouri would have their voice heard again. That is the third and I guess best version right now in Jeff City. Now, this has been going on for a long time. This is not just a 2024 issue. This has been being blocked in Jeff City for years, but particularly last year, and right now it's being blocked again. So currently, as in like over the last 2 weeks, there's been a war, you've probably seen in the news, between the conservatives in the Senate and their Senate leaders who were trying to block IP reform. There's been a filibuster off and on for several weeks. And what that means, for those who don't know, is senators will get on the floor and they will talk for days. They will literally talk for days about anything, everything, and they will lock down the Senate and preclude the rhinos from moving their agenda items until they get a concession that those rhinos will move the conservative agenda items. That filibuster took place for the first basically 2 weeks of this session. And then last week, Senate leaders, the rhinos, finally said, okay, we'll take up IP reform the week of February 5 through 8, this past work week. Instead, what happened is they asked the Senate to lay the bill over. And that means that right now it is on a special calendar, which means it may not move forward unless the same Senate rhino leaders who blocked it for the last year and a half decide to move it forward right now. I know it's technical. Long story short, they blocked it all last year. They blocked it for the last 5 weeks of this session. The bill was moving. It's now been stalled. That's where we are today. There are 4 people right now in Jeff City who are responsible for what happens to IP reform. 4 people who will decide if we can save the Second Amendment, if we can stop the abortion referendums and save our state from being just systematically destroyed through ongoing IP initiatives or not. Those 4 people in order. Number 1, Senate President Pro Tem Caleb Rowden. If you've been around for a while, you know the name Caleb Rowden. We named him Caleb the Rodent in 2021 because Caleb Rowden is the guy who almost crushed SAPA law here in Missouri in 2021. Caleb the Rodent needs to hear from you immediately. His number is on the screen up above. You need to call Caleb and tell him if he blocks IP reform, you will never ever forget that. And here is the particular leverage that you have on him. Caleb the Rodent is term limited. He is done in the Missouri Senate. This is his last year in Jeff City. And so instead, he is currently running for Secretary of State. That means every single person watching this video has a chance to vote for him or vote against him in the August primary. Feel free to tell him that when you call his office. You will hold him accountable if he does not ensure that IP reform gets done. And frankly, it doesn't matter what the staff says. It doesn't matter what Caleb says. Any excuse they give you is total BS. It's been that way for a long time with Caleb, and we all know it. Just tell him, I don't care what you say. I'm just telling you right now, if you don't get this done, I'm going to remember that when I cast my vote for Secretary of State in August of this year. That's number 1. Number 2 is Majority Floor Leader in the Senate still, Cindy O'Laughlin. Cindy O'Laughlin. Now, Cindy has been pretty darn decent for a very long time when it comes to gun rights issues and other conservative issues. But that doesn't matter. You know, when it comes to politics, it doesn't really matter, what you did for us 3 years ago, 4 years ago, yesterday. All we care about is how are you going to fight to defend our freedom tomorrow and going forward. And right now, Cindy O'Laughlin is attacking the very conservative senators who have been pushing for IP reform all session. She also needs to hear from you right away. Her number is above. We're also going to have it at the end of this video. Call Cindy and give her the same message. I want this done. If you don't deal with this, we will remember this vote if you ever run for any higher office ever again. She needs to hear from you as well. And I want to do a little rabbit trail here in case you missed this. When our friends on the conservative side were filibustering in the Senate for the last couple of weeks, in response to that, you're going to love this. The rodents, Caleb Rowden and Cindy O'Laughlin, conspired together. They had the power to call a press conference, and they demoted all of the senators who are fighting for IP reform. So senators like Rick Bratton, Bill Eigel, Denny Hoskins, and a bunch of others, they took away their chairmanships in Jeff City. So if they were the chairman of a committee, they were stripped of that. If they were the vice chairman of a committee, they were stripped of that. They took away their parking spots. They took away their preferred parking spots in the Capitol, and they also seized, I think, I could be wrong, I believe they seized $10,000 of their staff budget for the year to run their offices. So this is not just a inter-party dispute amongst ideologues. This is war. And Cindy O'Loughlin and Caleb Rowden have declared war against the very senators who are fighting for the issues that we all care about, fighting to save our gun rights by initiative petition reform. So don't be overly nice when you call both Rowden and O'Loughlin. That's the Senate side. But the same dynamic is playing out right now in the House. In the House, individual House members do not have the power, the authority that a state senator does. They cannot hold up the floor. They cannot filibuster. There's no way for them to force an issue forward for floor debate. So it comes down exclusively to two people. The first one is Speaker of the House, Dean Plocher. You got Dean's face. Where is it? Right up here. Dean Plocher. If you've been around the fight for gun rights, you know that Dean Plocher, with one exception that I know of, one exception, has been a complete backstabbing trash ball to gun owners the entire 8 years he's been in the House. The only exception to that was SAPA in 2021. And I want to be very clear on that. Dean Plocher didn't want to pass SAPA. The Speaker of the House that time, Rob Vescovo, forced him to vote for and put SAPA on the floor and pass SAPA. Dean Plocher has blocked every gun bill he's ever had the chance to block as a committee chairman. He's blocked every bill he had the chance to block as majority floor leader, except for SAPA. And he's blocked all of our bills last year and this year right now in Jeff City. And Dean Plocher needs to hear from you guys as well. His number is up above. And here's the delightful thing about Mr. Plocher. Like Caleb Rowden, he is term limited out. He's done. And like Caleb Rowden, Dean Plocher is running for statewide office. Dean wants to be Lieutenant Governor Dean Plocher at the end of the August primary. And that means, just like Caleb Rowden, he is particularly susceptible to pressure from gun owners. So please, when you call Mr. Plocher, remind him that you're the Speaker of the House. You have the authority you need to move IP reform, and we want it done now. And if you don't deal with this, Mr. Plocher, we'll remember your name on the ballot as we approach the August primary as you run for lieutenant governor. So make sure and tell him that as well. The fourth and final name in the House is Majority Floor Leader John Patterson. John Patterson is currently the number 2 guy in the House, but he's already been selected to be the Speaker of the House for the 2025-2026 legislative session. Mr. Patterson then has his choice, as most of these termed out speakers do, of potentially running statewide in his own right down the road. And so while he's not running statewide right now, he definitely is one of the kind of guys who should be reminded that gun owners will not take it lightly if Republicans in leadership do not use the power that they have to pass IP reform. So give John Patterson a call as well. And again, there is no need to be overly polite. I'm not saying scream, shout, curse, but they're going to give you a response. Whatever that response is, it's BS. They could have passed IP reform last year. They did not do it. It could have happened, for that matter, 2 years ago. They did not do it. It could have happened already this year. They did not do it. So any excuse they give you is crap. Do not take it. Do not fall for it. Instead, double down and say, I don't care about your excuses. If you don't get this done, if you don't deal with this, I'll remember. That's your message. And one last little note when it comes to Dean Plocher. What you'll probably hear from his office is the Speaker has a version of this legislation. He's been pushing this for the last couple of years. He cares deeply about IP reform. Here's a little trick about Dean Plocher. He doesn't just lie to your face. He lies with some conniving. And so what Dean is doing right now is pushing a version of IP reform that elevates that threshold from 50% plus one to 60% plus one. Well, that might sound to be good at first blush. And he, of course, will try to tell you that he's a super conservative because he's doing this. Plocher knows that won't pass. It didn't pass in Ohio just last year. It hasn't passed in any other state that tried to do that threshold. He knows it won't pass, but he's using that as cover to protect himself, to try to claim to be doing things on this issue when he's trying to sabotage them. That's all this is. So guys, don't fall for this. Take action. Make your phone calls happen right away. Again, this is the gun bill in 2024 because all the laws that we've passed so far constitutional carry, stand your ground law, enhanced castle, lifetime carry permit, SAPA, all of it could all be undone by a future ballot initiative here in Missouri. So not only are we at risk of losing future expansions of gun rights, all that we have right now could be undone. We must deal with this issue. It must happen in time to be effective for the elections this year. That's the story. That's who's fighting for you right now. That's who's opposing this right now. Those 4 names, call them. And guys, don't just call them today. Call them today. Call them tomorrow. Call them the next day. Keep it coming. Keep the pressure on. And guys, as this ramps up, we'll give you additional phone numbers to call as well. We're going to begin with their office numbers, and we'll see where it goes. Guys, as always, join the fight today for gun rights here in Missouri at joinmofc.com and share our video online. Guys, take care and stay free.